All right, let's talk about jhanas. Now, you've probably heard this term thrown around, and it can sound pretty mystical and far out. But forget all that. Today, we're going to treat the jhanas as what they really are, an incredibly practical, high-performance toolkit for anyone who wants to seriously master their own mind. So, let's get into it. Does this sound familiar? You sit down to meditate. You close your eyes, and bam! Your mind is just a hurricane of thoughts, to-do lists, worries, random song lyrics. Yeah, if that's you, you are not alone. In fact, that's pretty much everybody. And that exact challenge is our starting point today. So, let's completely reframe how we think about jhanas. Stop thinking of them as some lofty spiritual goal. Instead, think of this practice as a powerful upgrade for your mental OS. It's like going from a clunky, glitchy old computer to a brand new lightning-fast one. We're talking about debugging your mind so it runs smoother, with way less friction. This isn't just about finding peace. It's about unlocking performance. Okay, section 1. Before we jump into the solution, we really have to get crystal clear on the problem we're trying to solve. And that is, the constant state of distraction that most of us live in 24/7. Here's the core challenge. Our minds are, by their very nature, turbulent. They're like curious puppies, always wandering off and getting hooked by the next interesting thing. Now, it's so important to get this. This is not a personal failing. It's not that you're bad at meditating. It's just the mind's factory default setting. And just knowing that is a huge first step. So what's the solution? Well, the jhana practice gives us a map to navigate the wild territory of our own inner world. And this isn't a rigid turn-by-turn GPS that you have to follow perfectly. Think of it more like a topographical map. It shows you the terrain, it points out the landmarks, and it helps you explore with a lot more skill and awareness. On to section 2. Now, every explorer with a map needs a compass, right? For this inner journey, our compass is a very specific quality of mind that we can all learn to develop. It's something called the observer. So, what in the world is the observer? Well, it's that part of your awareness that can just sit back and watch the show. It sees the thoughts, it notices the feelings, it feels the sensations, but it doesn't jump on stage and get tangled up in the drama. It's this capacity for calm, curious watching that we all have. We just need to practice using it. And this is where things get really, really practical. The observer is basically your secret weapon against distractions. So instead of fighting with that nagging, anxious thought, you just notice it. You acknowledge it. You see it for what it is, just a little blip of mental energy, and you let it drift on by. Here's another way to think about it. The observer is like the air traffic controller in the tower of your mind. A distracting thought, another plane, comes flying into your mental airspace. You don't panic. You don't try to shoot it down. You just calmly note its presence, say roger that, and then gently guide your attention right back to the main runway, which for us is the breath. Okay, one more analogy, because these are so helpful. Have you ever been so engrossed in a movie that you completely forget where you are? You're just in it. The observer is that moment where you suddenly remember, oh, right, I'm on my couch watching a screen. You've just stepped back from the story and become aware of the act of watching. That's the observer. Okay, so we've got our map, we've got our compass. Now it's time to learn how to actually read the terrain. Let's talk about the key landmarks you'll start to notice on this inner landscape. These jhana factors, they're kind of like the gauges on your mind's dashboard. They tell you about the quality of your concentration. First, you've got vitakka and vicara. Vitakka is simply the act of placing your attention on the breath, like aiming a flashlight. And vicara is the subtle skill of keeping it there. Then you might notice piti, which is this really pleasant, joyful energy. It can feel like a buzzing or a warmth. And after that comes sukha, which is this deep, quiet calm. When you start noticing these signs, you know your concentration is getting stronger. Now, for a slightly more advanced move. The source material for this uses a really beautiful analogy for it. It's like gently pulling a hand out of a glove. You're still connected, but you're creating this new sense of space and separation. So what's actually happening when you do that? Well, it's a subtle but really crucial shift. Most of the time, we're focused on the object, the physical feeling of the breath. This shift is when you start focusing on the process. You become aware of the awareness that is experiencing the breath. It's a move into meta-awareness, watching the watching. It's a game changer. But look, it's so important to remember, all these descriptions, they're just a guide. This is not a strict rule book. Your journey is going to look different, and that's perfectly okay.
The real key here is to be curious, Be like a scientist in your own mental laboratory, just observing what happens. The most valuable map is always the one you chart for yourself through your own direct experience.
So we've covered the how, but we've got to talk about the why. Where does all of this actually lead? Because this isn't just about doing some cool mental exercises. The true destination of this practice is a really profound and practical shift in how you experience your life. This practice helps us see through one of the biggest illusions we all live with, this deep-seated belief that there's a solid, permanent, unchanging me at the center of everything. We instinctively grab onto our thoughts and feelings and believe, this is who I am.
But with this kind of deep observation, you start to see that the self isn't a solid thing at all. It's not a mountain, it's a process. It's much more like a wave on the ocean. It rises up, takes a temporary shape for a moment, and then it dissolves right back into the vastness. It's just an ever-changing flow of thoughts and sensations. Now, this insight isn't some magic pill that makes all of life's challenges disappear. Life is still going to happen, but what changes is your relationship to those challenges. Instead of being constantly knocked over and thrashed around by every wave of difficulty, you'll learn how to ride those waves with more balance, more skill. You start to realize, hey, maybe I'm not just the temporary wave. Maybe I'm the whole ocean. So, we'll leave you with this to think about. Take this whole idea off the meditation cushion and bring it into your actual life. What areas, your job, your relationships, your biggest personal challenges, could be totally transformed if you brought this quality of deeper awareness and impartial observation to them? The real journey is right there, waiting for you to explore it.